What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another new deck profile featured on the YGO Mega Beta. Today I'm bringing out a new deck that I got to try on stream, and that is Invoked Shaddolls. This deck isn't too new to the game, but it has changed quite a bit from the old format I'm used to, so it was fun to mess with. I did change this list gradually as duels progress, originally starting with too much of a Shaddoll monster lineup, and then cutting it down to the ratios you see on screen. I also had a slightly larger Dogmatika package which had 3 Ecclesia and more Nadir Servants, but being new to the Dogmatika archetype, it took me time to realize that running a small engine could help better, especially for this variant. The Invoked side dish is maxed out for the most part, the only notable change being the extra deck, as I moved on from the Almirage and Gardener combo into the lone Artemis Magistus Link monster. While losing a potential fire target for Purgatrio can be scary sometimes, making the crucial extra deck space for the Dogmatika combos felt too important to pass up. Making these small ratio changes helped out my duels a lot, and I did start getting some wins. With the smaller ratios, I got a lot more space for hand traps, which seem to be a big part of the meta right now, so it worked out. Outside of the normal Invoke Macabre turn 1, setting up Dogmatika Punishment with Ecclesia on field and Fleurdelis in the hand is probably one of the best things to get, as it gives you a pop or 2 with Punishment and an extra deck monster negate. This doesn't count the Macabre negate or Window lock if you happen to get that too. Shaddoll Schism is another big part of this deck, as you can send Opgalone to the grave to search it with your Dogmatika cards, a common combo that people run in a few decks. I'm still learning correct sequences, so I'm pretty sure I make mistakes here and there, but it is a strong package nonetheless. There are duels in the video where you will see 2 or more Nadir Servants, and I'm still on the fence about changing that ratio up and cutting a hand trap. It is once per turn, however, and once you get your essential searches between that and Ecclesia, getting any more does not seem needed. The Shaddoll lineup is pretty standard, with the exception that Wendi and Squamata aren't maxed out like they are sometimes in pure versions. It really isn't needed since you want to send them from the deck half the time, but getting a fusion play in the hand can still be a focus if your opponent isn't focusing on an extra deck. Some of the best plays that I learned with Shaddolls in general is to use the fusion monsters themselves as fusion materials, or link materials, as having them leave the field to recover a Shaddoll Fusion or Schism can help out in the long run. The Rush Shaddoll trap does get you some neat combos with these plays, but in this type of hybrid, it's harder to focus on, so it isn't worth the slot. Funny enough, in this first replay, I do end up facing off in a mirror match for the most part. Unfortunately, we do not go first and don't have any hand traps, so I have to deal with an Invoke Macabre right away. I'm already thinking that I don't want to sacrifice Aleister to the negate since this hand isn't the best, but we do have Nadir Servant as a fallback plan. Part of me does expect Nadir to go through, as it is rare to see Macabre negate a spell sometimes, but it would be pretty much guaranteed that he has to negate the Entis that I can send since it has equal attack. Of course, with my luck, Ash Blossom is in the hand, so that ruins that idea, so I'm going to set Hedgehog and pass. If the Driver and Beast in hand were better cards, we probably wouldn't be stuck like this, but sadly we have to pray I don't get OTK'd. The weird thing that happens here is that my opponent might have had the power to OTK and he did not. It could have depended on his extra deck, as he does go into Cross Sheep, which led me to believe he had Unicorn or Celine for access code, but since this is still Invoked Shaddolls, the extra deck space for all of those cards plus all the fusion targets you need to run at a minimum makes that play seem unlikely now. Regardless, we are going to survive, and thanks to the Hedgehog search, we have multiple avenues of approach now on our next turn, even if Macabre has the negate. I definitely want to lead with a fusion play before restricting myself with Nadir, but my opponent did search Schism, so summoning a light or dark monster can result in it being sent to the grave along with us having to deal with Construct, or worse, Winda. It was at this moment though that I realized I do have a strong monster in my extra deck that is neither light or dark and can end this duel in a single turn. Flipping up Beast here made me believe my opponent was hoping for a Hail Mary draw to negate with Macabre, but as I said before, we have Shaddoll Fusion in the hand as well as Nadir Servant to close out with. With Almirage lying in my opponent's graveyard, Purgatrio is definitely possible and doesn't require itself to activate any effects to get a healthy attack boost with Piercing and the ability to attack all of my opponent's monsters. Since we have some nice targets to attack such as Falco, Beast, Sheep, and Opgalone, lethal is definitely in sight with an Aleister boost if allowed. Regardless, there doesn't seem to be any more disruptions or things to be careful of, so I can just Shaddoll Fusion and Nadir Servant to completely destroy my opponent. That's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoy the replays and like and comment on the video. Stay tuned for the next one.